We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll call this Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Whitefish City Council to order. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening. We're also in attendance with folks via Teams, so welcome to those individuals remotely as well. We'll start with our pledge. And Kevin, do you mind joining us and leading us? Thank you, Kevin. We'll move on to communications from the public. We do have two public hearings scheduled for this evening, so if you're here to provide comment on one of our two public hearings, please wait until I call those items. Otherwise, anything you'd like to bring to the attention of the council, now would be your opportunity. And just your name and address for the record, please.
Excuse me. Thank you. My name is Jeff Evans. I'm representing the Willows Homeowners Association on action item number 7 on the agenda.
Thank you. We can call you later if we have any questions. Yep, thanks. Further communications from the public?
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Mayor, City Council, staff, it's Rachel Schmidt, 675 Woodside Lane. Hope you guys all had a rockin' Labor Day weekend, as I did. I sent over a little letter from the Safe Trails Whitefish crew and a lovely unprofessional image that I personally drew. You're lucky it's not with crayons, it was digital, with a little map of the Springs and River Lake City Park area. This information we've sent to the Architectural Review Committee, Pedestrian Bike Path Advisory Committee, and came here to tell you today. This is regarding the expansion plan condition of approval follow-up. This is our second follow-up. Safe Trails Whitefish is following up on ordinance 24-05 from this ordinance. You added a condition of approval. We thank you for that. And if you skip down, I just said, please note the following information. We were very confused as the reference to the Architectural Review Committee. Wendy is awesome, and she totally filled us in on how that works. They haven't seen anything yet. So they will see this as soon as they eventually submit something in full. Per city records, the Springs at Whitefish is developed under a PUD. A PUD offers flexibility and density and other development benefits in exchange for superior and innovative public amenities. Safe Trails Whitefish requests changes to the site plan proposed by the Springs to address connectivity and safety. Do you have that really not lovely map that I sent over, the image? Nah, it's in the packets. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, I sent over a little, awesome. Okay, so we just brought some high-level stuff. Number one, we would really like the Springs to retain that existing multiple use path. That is the red line on your map. That is proposed to be removed. It's supposed to be, I believe, a one-way road that was providing 13 parking spaces and some dumpster access. We really want them to keep that as a multiple use path and, of course, add condition 4, which is the additional path where the blue dotted line goes around is what they're proposing. But we'd like to see them keep that red path. Keeping the existing path and requiring a path around the remainder of the property, the city retains the best option for connectivity to the adjoining city park and eventually the development of said park, providing safe access to open space and walking options for all abilities in a traffic-free zone. If they do remove that existing multiple use path that's there and just put it around the outside of the Springs, if the Springs keeps all of those access points, someone that uses that multiple use path is going to have to stop at least, per their site plan right now, 5 times to cross inlets and outlets into that property. So there's no traffic-free zone. So we'd really like to see that traffic-free zone for every user. Number 2, develop a universally designed multiple use path on their property in that upper corner. So where you see City Park written in very horrible chicken scratch in green, to the left of that is a yellow circle. That's a great area right there. We'd love to see them propose, do a little universally designed path. And then all the rest of the yellow circles, orange circles, are areas where we really want to see improved crosswalks and or stoplights. down there, we just identified, we looked through the PUD rules. I won't reread them all to you, but we were just seeing that, the rules, how we see them, in red, we see that our proposal fits the PUD's requirements better. Moving on to the very end, if losing those 13 parking spots is a real, bummer for them, and there are hundreds of parking spaces at other event areas, whether it's the sports complex, et cetera, I'm sure that those areas would love to help them add additional parking spaces for events if they need those. And then I have had an honor to sit in with you guys on multiple meetings now, and I see you guys are really great about, keeping public access, keeping public right-of-ways and easements, and you've stated that you're not in the business of giving that stuff away. And so that's why I think that eliminating this multiple use path in red that's currently on the Connect Whitefish plan is kind of an oversight, and I really do think we need to keep that in the inventory for multiple use paths. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel. Further public comment tonight? Michelle, anyone online?
For those of you who are online, do you have anything that you would like to share with the council regarding anything that's not a public hearing, either on the agenda or not on the agenda? I think we're good.
Any volunteer board reports from the audience? Cameron?
Good evening, everybody. Cameron Blake, 825 Lexan Trail, and I'm reporting for the Whitefish Community Housing Committee. At our last meeting, we looked at the roadmap strategy, policies to support community housing, and specifically the zoning for affordability in flexible forms. So we started with Dana provided the Montana Land Use Planning Act housing strategies, and we took a look at those to see which ones might make sense to evaluate and recommend for inclusion in the growth policy update. And just really looked at them and said yay or nay. Some of them had already been included and are already part of our zoning, like the duplexes. But initial step, yay or nay to move forward on those. At our next meeting per year recommendation, we're going to be looking at the legacy homes, is my understanding. And then we have a work session with you all to set priorities on November 4th. Thank you for that. And I think with that roadmap strategy and which strategies to include and timing of that vis-a-vis the new growth policy update, would love to get feedback at that work session on just how we proceed with that.
And that's November 4th?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks,
So,
Cameron.
thank you.
Appreciate the update. Any volunteer board reports from the folks joining remotely? Probably not. How about council? Not seeing any. We'll move to our consent agenda. You do have the regular meeting minutes from August 19th, 2024. I would entertain a motion, Frank.
I have no mic, but I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda in any case.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Davis. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion does carry unanimously. I think I took your mic. Yeah.
I think you did.
Not intentional. We will move on to our first public hearing of the evening, which will be item 6A, a consideration of a request from Don K. for a conditional use permit to expand a vehicle inventory storage area for automotive sales located at 6208 Highway 93 South. The property is on WR2SC as well as WB2. Wendy.
All right, good evening. So again, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to expand their vehicle inventory storage area for automotive sales, which will increase the pavement by a little bit more than an acre. The project will include landscaping and stormwater management. The property is partially developed with a single-family home and several outbuildings, and access will be off of JP Road. Currently, the property is comprised of a lot on the corner and then a lot that kind of fronts on the highway and wraps around the backside and goes up the hill. They're in the process of doing a boundary line adjustment, so there will be a front lot that goes from the corner of JP all along the highway frontage and then a back lot, and that's where this particular inventory lot will be located. A CUP is required in the WB2 zoning district for automotive, boat, and recreational vehicle sales, rentals, repair, and service. This storage area will be located wholly within the WB2 zoning. The entire property is 11 and a half acres, but only 1.22 acres will be in the vehicle sales lot area. The property is surrounded by a church, residential uses, and commercial uses. Again, the zoning has two different zoning designations, WR2SC, which is the special conditions, which is located up the hill and towards the back, and then the WB2, which is located downhill where this lot is located. The land use designations are general commercial in the front and urban in the back, which is consistent with the zoning districts. The property is served by all public services and facilities. We did notice adjacent landowners and did not receive any comments. We review conditional use permits according to the criteria in the zoning regulations. Again, the area where the proposed parking lot is located or storage lot is in the general commercial, so that is consistent with the WB2. Again, that zoning that's split between two different zoning districts does identify that you're supposed to use one or the other, but not both. But the property had been used as a parking lot, kind of storage area before it got annexed, and then residential in the back, so it was non-conforming use. And this is changing the non-conforming use, but it isn't increasing it, it's just kind of shifting it to a different area. So it's maintaining that non-conformant status and not increasing its non-conformity. Again, they have adequate usable area for the storage area. Access is suitable. This isn't really technically a parking lot, like a conventional parking lot where you have, you know, spaces and drive aisles and that kind of thing, because it's sort of more of a storage area. Council recently approved no parking on Shiloh Avenue due to the Shiloh Avenue, Whitefish Avenue being connected through with the subdivision to the north of kind of the Donkey area. So there is going to be no parking in that area, and so all the employees need to park off-street. And so as a result, with this additional vehicle storage area, staff would like to review the employee parking plan to ensure that there's adequate space either on this lot or the lot across the street where the Donkey is. So that's one of the conditions of approval. With the additional vehicle storage, there's likely to be increase in vehicles moving on and off of the property. But again, this project is well suited to take advantage of intersection signal lights at JP and Highway 93. The applicant's not proposing any fencing, but screening is required adjacent to residential, which would be a 10-foot area, both along the street frontages and next to the residential use. The applicant will be required to submit an engineered stormwater plan due to the size of pavement that they're adding. Traffic impacts are anticipated to be minimal. The total number of vehicles parked at any one time is 165, which is below the 200 trip threshold, and likely those vehicles aren't going to be moving every single day in and out. And again, it's well suited to take advantage of that intersection signal. There are no buildings proposed with this request. The Community Development Board held a public hearing on August 15th, and they unanimously recommended approval, subject to 7 conditions of approval. Just to hit a couple highlights, they will require engineered stormwater plan be submitted to the Public Works Department for review and approval. We'd also like a landscaping plan submitted with this, and then submit an employee parking plan showing an area for employee parking so we can ensure that it's all off-street. Any questions?
Thanks, Wendy. Any questions for Wendy on her staff reports? Ben?
One question. The only thing that stuck out to me about this was that we've got these design standards now, you know, parking lots behind buildings, parking lots are designed a certain way, and it kind of seems like this isn't subject to any of those. Is that true? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's not technically a parking lot. It's for vehicle storage, so they're just subject to the other landscaping requirements. Not like the 1 every 10 spaces and drive aisles and parking spaces, because they can cram a lot of parked cars in there, and they'll be moving constantly as well.
And
So we feel comfortable with that.
And you're okay with automobile storage being the same as automobile sales as far
It's
as
like
the
sales, services, and
errors, I think?
rentals and repairs and service. So, I mean, ultimately, they will be for sale.
Further questions? Rebecca?
So Wendy, I'm confused. There's normally would be a fence, but there's no fence with this.
They're not proposing a fence. There's no requirement for a fence. They have to do landscape buffering between the facility and the residential use up the hill.
Okay, but the residential's too far away to require any kind of blocking? You're just saying that landscape is the only thing that will block the view?
Right, we have landscape buffer requirements when it's commercial being developed next to residential, and that's what, this is commercial and residential's next door. So we'll require a 10-foot wide landscaping buffering, which is part of the new landscaping chapter that you guys approved last summer.
Okay, and then also this requirement to have you guys inspect the parking plan for the employees, will that include the property across the street too?
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of one facility. We just want to make sure there's enough parking for all the staff on site,
So that will
whether
be,
that's on the west side or the east side,
and that's over 100 employees.
how many employees they have.
That's what he said at the last public hearing, I think. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on item 6A of our agenda. We'll hold that public hearing now. Doug, Kevin, anything to add, please? Name and address for the record.
Doug Petmeyer, TD&H Engineering, 450 Corporate Drive, Kalispell. No, we're just here. I think Kevin has a couple of things to say. I just wanted to let you guys know we agree with the findings of fact and staff report, and I'm available for any technical questions. If you guys have questions about maybe how the business operates or anything like that, Kevin is available, and he did want to say a couple of words.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
My name is Kevin Kalchman, the general manager at Don K. I live at 21 JP Road in Whitefish. I'll address a few of the questions that you had first. One of the difference in this versus a regular parking lot, like it's been said, is inventory storage. The only difference is our inventory is cars. That's what's kind of weird about this. If we were just putting like Connex boxes full of parts, it's kind of like the same thing. It's just our inventory is vehicles. So, and like she was talking about, sometimes we'll have to park them like 5 in a row and different things like that, depending on the varying levels of inventory. So no sales actually happening on that side of the street. We aren't set up for that. If we ever did anything, then we have to build a building, which would require its own review. But the parking for employees, so we already know how many we have on our lot on the east side of the highway. So it's basically just counting how many people park on the street every day, which is around 30, and there's going to be hundreds of extra parking spots. So it's easily going to be enough, but we plan on showing that, of course, just for more than 30 parking spots. But so it should be more than adequate, and room for a lot of growth as well if there were more team members added later. And then the residential buffering, obviously that's part of the landscaping plan. But just so you know, the residential that's buffering up to is us as well. We also own that. And I'm actually the person that lives in the house right there, so it's buffering from me. But obviously there'd have to be, again, anything that we added right there, we'd have to do something at that time if we actually submitted a plan for that. But just so you know, that's a little extra stuff. If you guys have any other questions?
Thanks, Kevin. Rebecca has one.
Thanks for reviewing the parking. So, because it's a big change for your business to lose the street parking, so you're going to be able to accommodate all of your employees on your own property with this change, is what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yes.
And then there was just one other thing in noise or vibration, the neighborhood community impact. It says that there shouldn't be any other noise because things will only be happening during business hours. But is that true, or will you expect deliveries and stuff to come at odd hours too that could impact the neighborhood?
So the only thing that's ever after hours currently, which would be the same, is transport trucks drop off on that side of the street. We aren't allowed to drop off on the other side of the street. That got taken away a while ago from Shiloh. So that's the only option left. So that would remain the same. Nothing would change with that. There's still going to be their path to come in and out on the west side of the highway. well, they'll drop off but that's part of the old plan anyway. The new plan that we're talking about, those are just going to be vehicles that are parked there during business hours, because my team members don't like to come in after hours to work. But
So it'll just be cars, there won't be any deliveries coming and going at this new place, is what you're saying?
yeah, this new piece of property is just, those cars will get parked there. Potentially a transport vehicle could drop off on our current paved area and then maybe pull it into a spot that's open on this new spot, but that's the most that could possibly ever happen.
Okay.
Because, there's hundreds of drivers, they kind of park wherever they see an opening,
Okay,
but
thanks.
that's the same as now.
Well,
so.
just for noise, I was wondering if that was going to impact the neighborhood, but sounds like probably not, right?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Kevin? Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Additional public comment this evening? Michelle, anyone online?
Anybody online like to speak towards this item, conditional use permit for Don K. Chevrolet? We're good.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I would be happy to move to approve WCUP 24-08 in accordance with the Whitefish City Code, Title 11, Chapter 7, Subsection 8, based on the findings of facts presented in the report and subject to the 7 conditions of approval and recommended by the City Council, and anyway, approve this conditional use permit.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Doug. Thanks, Kevin, for coming this evening. You bet. Good luck. We'll move on to item 7A, consideration of a request from the Willow HOA for Whitefish Lake and Lake Shore minor variance. Excuse me? Oh, excuse me. We'll move on to item 6B, Resolution 24-40, amending the Legacy Home Program administrative procedures, purchase prices, rental prices, and fees in lieu. Dave?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So every year since 2019, we've been updating this number. The ownership prices and rental prices are derived from the area median income for Flathead County that's established by Housing and Urban Development Department, HUD. And then the fee in lieu is based on the 3-year average of sales, the multiple listing service in the 59937 zip code, average square footage of homes sold in that zip code, and then the AMI for Flathead County. And we get those average sales prices every year from Montana Association of Realtors. So we use that AMI from HUD as that's an industry standard in the affordable housing field, and it's established defensible data source which we can support in court. And for the same reason, we use that 59937 zip code, because it's provided by NMAR annually, and also our strategic housing plan and housing needs assessment based all their numbers on the whole 59937 zip code, as that is kind of our area here. So we also excluded outliers of 5 million or greater as part of that. So the 3-year average of home sales was 795,666. So running that through our tables, the new fee in lieu would be 375,443. So last year it was 294,349. So it's about a 27.5% increase from last year. So we respectfully ask you to adopt that new fee. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions for Dave on his staff reports? Rebecca?
Yep. Dave, did you have any headway about just doing the city data from NMAR instead of using the 59937 county data,
I mean, that's what's outlined in our Legacy Homes program, as well as our strategic housing plan of using that whole 59937. I mean, we did those plans. I think that the reason is because that's our area, and it's most easily supported numbers that we get from NMAR. I would have to contact them to try to see if they could specifically cut out the stuff that's within city limits and what that are not in city limits, but we haven't got that information yet. So
I know, I bring this up so many times, but I think it skews our data because we are not responsible for the county, but we're incorporating county data into our decision-making. So I think it would be appropriate to ask Enmar if we could get just city sales prices and data so we knew what we were dealing with if it was exceptionally high compared to the 59937, and it would affect which kinds of programs we could offer. So this is one of my pet peeves, so I'll leave it. Thank you.
Further questions for Dave? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on what will be Resolution 24-40, and we'll hold that public hearing now. Any public comment this evening? Michelle, anyone online?
Those of you online who'd like to speak towards this agenda item, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. We're good.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for preferably a motion.
I'd make a motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that what are we doing here? Oh yeah, we're updating the housing and rental prices and the fee in lieu of for affordable housing to keep pace with the changing housing market. I don't have my glasses on. There you go.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Galtabiano. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion does carry unanimously, which now brings us to item 7, communications from our planning and building director. We'll move to item 7A, consideration of a request from the Willow HOA for Whitefish Lake and Lakeshore minor variance to the constructed area regulations in order to remove the existing 110-foot long, 2-foot wide fixed walkway and replace it with a floating 5-foot wide walkway located at 1340 Wisconsin Avenue. Nelson.
Good evening. Yes, so some background. This property received a lakeshore variance in 1998 to extend their dock past 100 feet. So it's currently 160 feet long, including the walkway. So they're looking at taking the existing 110-foot long walkway that's 2 feet wide and is not floating. They're looking to replace it with a floating walkway for the 160 feet. They were proposing a 5-foot wide walkway. The dimensions are actually 60 inches wide for that 110 feet. So that would be looking at adding 330 square feet to their constructed area. Right now they have 680 square feet of constructed area. That was allowed from the previous variance. Without a variance, they would be allowed 640 square feet because they have 80 feet of lake frontage. So yes, so they're looking to go to 996 square feet. They would only be widening the walkway, going again from the current 2 feet to the proposed 5 feet. So when considering a lakeshore variance, there's 3 criteria that must be met. The first criteria is that, due to unusual circumstances, strict enforcement of the requirements would result in undue hardship. So again, in the variance from 1998, it was determined that there was a hardship due to the shallow waters, which allowed the dock to extend past the standard 100 feet. So a 2-foot wide walkway is not particularly safe or easy to maintain, take in and out, and walk on. So there is a hardship there just with the sheer length that they need in order to get out to their dock. Criteria 2 is that there's no reasonable alternatives that exist in order to meet the standards. And so when the variance was first approved, it was 1 home with 1 dock. Now it's a condo association. There's 4 units on the property. So they have 4 dock slips. They reconfigured the dock in 2017 under the same square footage constraints of the first variance in order to get 4 usable boat slips. So there are alternatives to meet the standards herein. They could decrease, they could remove part of remove dock to expand the walkway if they were looking to do that. In talking to to the dealer of the walkways and docks, they do have 40-inch and 60-inch options. 40 inches is definitely not as stable as 60 inches, but it is possible. Reasonable alternatives do exist to reduce the dock size and to fall within the lakeshore protection regulations. The criteria 3 is that granting the variance will not have adverse impacts on the lake or lakeshore. There would be no water quality, shoreline, wildlife, recreation, navigation, or environmental impacts just by widening the walkway. In the conclusion, that the applicant does not meet the criteria for a variance. It does not meet all three, and so staff recommended denial based on the proposal's conformance with the Lakeshore Protection Regulations. In the August 14th Lakeshore Protection Committee, staff recommended denial, and the Lakeshore Protection Committee voted unanimously to recommend denial to the City Council. And if you do recommend approval, the standards, conditions of approval are very standard. It's simply a dock. The only condition that is not as typical is that the usage of a dock is limited to the properties applied for in the permit application when the dock is granted under a variance.
Any questions for Nelson on his staff report? Steve?
Nelson, you said they reconfigured the dock in what year?
I believe that was 2015.
2015, and that was after it changed from a single residence on the property to a bigger residence. Did they expand to a condo association?
Yeah, the parameters stayed the same. They just reconfigured the dock. Yep, after.
Okay, but they didn't. Did they expand the size of the dock that's out there, or they just change the alignment of it to make it more?
Yep. So originally, the dock, the original dock was, it had 4 by 20 foot sections and a 6 by 20 dock at the end. It was just a kind of like an eye dock. So the configuration changed. So they kind of narrowed the walkway, I guess, from 4 feet to 2 feet, and then took that extra square footage and made the dock, just changed the configuration to allow for more boats.
Okay.
So yes.
So they narrowed the walkway at that point?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Nelson? I would acknowledge, was your name Jeff? I'm sorry. Do you have any questions for Jeff specifically? Jeff, if you don't mind joining us, please. I think Rebecca has a question for you.
Hi. Just wondering, have you had any injuries or any things that you think are unsafe for the use of your property?
Yes, there has been incidents where a elderly person fell off the dock plank. It is very unstable. I'm 6'4". For me to walk up there at my height, no, I just don't take liberty on that. But yes, we have had some near miss and some injuries, of course.
All set? Further questions for Jeff by chance? Thanks, Jeff. I would entertain a motion one way or another just to keep the discussion moving. Frank?
For purposes of discussion, among other things, I would move to deny the Willow HOA Whitefish Lake Shore minor variance under these conditions.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Fury. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I mean, I look at this and I say, okay, is there, number one, you guys don't meet the criteria, but the reason you don't meet the criteria is because you made a variance 3 years or 5 years, 7 years ago to in fact narrow that dock. I mean, you did it yourselves. You chose to take that square footage and apply it to the end of the dock. That's fair. But I'm not sure we get to, now having done that, you get to come back and say, oh, we really need or really would prefer to have a 5 foot. And so I'm not sure you guys meet the criteria, and quite frankly, this is a problem of your own creations. So bring us a better plan, and you might get a better deal.
Further discussion or comments from the council? Rebecca?
Yep, I'm gonna vote for it, even though the Community Development Board voted against it, just because I don't think it's safe to have a 2-foot, too wide.
So you're voting against the motion?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
voting against the motion.
Further comments? Giuseppe?
Yeah, just for clarification, I think that was the Lakeshore Protection Committee that
Correct.
voted against it, not the Community Development Board. Yeah, just the only comment is that when we have staff recommending a certain way with defending of facts, and the committee dedicated to that area recommending the same way as the staff, unless I find completely opposite views of finding of facts, I would vote for denial following their advice.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Further comments from the council? All those in favor of the motion to deny the variance request, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign. Rebecca? There you go. And the motion does carry on a 5-1 vote with Councilor Norton voting in opposition. Thanks for coming tonight, Jeff. Yep.
And sorry.
We'll move on to Dana's written report. Any questions for Dana on her city manager's report this evening? Dana, anything additional to report on?
Just want to remind you that the City Council retreat is scheduled for Saturday, September 14th at Grouse Mountain Lodge. I have a brief agenda that I've ran through with John, and so planning start time would be 9 a.m. that day, to give you a time frame, 9 to 4.
Great. Thanks, Dana. Anything further from you this evening, Dana? Okay, we'll move on to councilor comments. Who would like to start tonight? Giuseppe.
No comment.
Steve.
Just a quick word, school's back in session, so be kind out there in our traffic mess around our schools, please.
Good reminder. Thanks, Steve. Frank?
No comment this evening, thanks.
Thank you, Frank. Ben? No comments. Thank you, Ben. Rebecca? Thank you, Rebecca. And finally, Andy. No comments. I have nothing further as well. On that note, yes, Michelle?
Sorry, I passed around earlier during the work session a list of the menu for our retreat.
Okay.
Andy has it. If you could please let me know what you prefer. That way we can have it ordered and they don't have to interrupt your day to make that order. So if you can make that decision tonight, and I can get that into the Grouse Mountain crew.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
We'll get that done. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
On that note, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.